Okay, so we're going to try and keep this under 5 minutes, and I've chosen to do option A, the rant. This is going to be a different style to a rant, although I'm ranting to you, and I'm going to be compiling it into a rant structure now. How I've gotten this information, how I've gotten to this point was very backwards. I took to social media, Hubert, and I actually posed a really, really good question. Kind of posed my rant, but in the state of a question in order to kind of dissect it and then be able to come up with some kind of rant. And here we go. So, what's with retired teachers still working? I came into class last week and my associate teacher was a supply teacher, great. And the lady was in her early 60s and she was retired. And she told me for several years now she's been retired, but she continues to be able to work a maximum of 50 days a year as an occasional teacher. So this is where my rant begins. I'm not too sure I agree with this. In a lot of situations, I feel like it's completely taking away from the next generations. It's a big part of the reason why our economy is continuing to stand still and in some cases slide. Employment's very hard at any time, let alone when you're competing with individuals who are in the greater limelight, double dipping as it's called. And that's not a term I gave it, that's a term that many people on social media gave it, and in fact my staff at my school also said, kind of rolled their eyes and said this is what the reality of teaching and this is what happens in Ontario school board. So I took my view and my stance to social media over the weekend, and I was absolutely blown away. I really got a lot out of this experience, and I'm just going to take you through what happened. So I posted in the Ontario Teachers Resource page on Facebook, which consists of 26,000 Ontario teacher members. I posted it at 1 o'clock. By 2 o'clock, within an hour, the post had over 350 views, it had 110 likes, and it proceeded to influence about 100 comments, replies over the course of 8 hours. It was an amazing discussion and inquiry approach, and I'm going to take you through that approach right now and kind of dissect it with my resources and my references also. So in the bottom right hand corner here, you'll notice that my references are laid out in my collective agreement 2008, which I looked into, the OTPP.com website, which referred to the Working After Retirement Plan, Pension Plan Guide, and then also going to the OCT website, which kind of dissected some specific board information. So basically I posed the question, and I'll just blow it up for you here. This is what I posed on social media. Very nice, very not rant-like. I said, quick question, folks. Would really appreciate some support. I can't seem to find too much on it because it was very difficult to find this information. Recently I was in a classroom, 50 days, just curious, what's up with this? And sure enough, you can see anything in red and anything with a red star is kind of where I want to focus your attention. So 33 replies came within about 15 minutes, many of which were from retired teachers and also from current teachers. And of course, people in my boat, students, those who are on the occasional list, trying to get LTO, etc., etc. This is where it went over the course of about 2 hours. This is a zoomed out screenshot, but you can see the conversation and the inquiry that was happening all the way through. It was unbelievable. Actually, several people from the Bachelor of Education at UOIT were kind of jumping on board also, and they were like, wow, you've really got something good going here. What did you do? And I said, well, it looks like I stirred the water because it's a very hot topic. Retirees still teaching, or any retiree in any profession still in that profession in a different title, or double dipping the system as it's called. It's a very hot topic item everywhere. It's happening in the nursing, it's happening in military, it's happening in automotive. So very, very interesting. So where it led me to go first off is, of course, the OCT website, and it states here in the bottom that you cannot continue to teach occasionally with a status of retired. Now this is more referring to as you're retiring. So if you haven't put through that you're going to be coming back, or if you'd like to continue to do lunchroom monitoring, or there's certain avenues that you can do as you're retiring that you just need to make clear to OCT and EDFO. And as I got into the Ontario Teachers Plan on OTTP, I managed to find some really good information. So here's where it all kicks off, the research end. So any teacher who is hired in Ontario as an occasional teacher, even after retirement, can work to a maximum of 50 days. If they teach on a month where their 50th day lands over into a new month, they'll actually exceed 50 days. So there's a little bit of a loophole there, where if they were to teach at the end of the month, but that Thursday, Friday ends up being the first or second of a new month, then they can actually roll over to a new month. So board specific. It's actually every board in Ontario is subject to comply with this. And it's just a way to kind of, I guess, circulate the publicly funded system, because what I was led to believe, and especially through social media, is that most people are supportive of this. Most teachers support it. But then there's the opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe people in my position, not particularly me, but other people, maybe students, people trying to become teachers, those looking for LTOs, they're very either misinformed or they don't really understand why this policy is here. So I know I'm over time here, but I'm going to try and break it down very quickly. So basically, for what it's worth, not every teacher has the ability to retire at a full pension. We don't know the stories of all of our colleagues, as one person stated here in the top. Another person here says that unfortunately they have been working for years, 8 years now, and they don't have a permanent position, but they try to take a healthier point of view. It's nice to consider that if someone leaves a full-time position, they are actually opening up an opportunity to allow a younger teacher to take that full-time position. Yes, in turn, they're staying part-time, but nobody has to retire. Nobody has to retire. So that's kind of what it came down to. And I'm just going to blow up kind of what happened after about 8 hours of deliberating and kind of discussing. And this is kind of what I stated after several individuals, kind of gave me information. I did my research. I kind of had my rebuttals. I saw all the points of views, and I came up with this. So no one has to retire. The idea of retirement happening and a position opening up is in some cases influenced by the ability and the opportunity to continue to stay in the profession part-time. Occasional work to a maximum of 50 days. If this was not available, if retired teachers did not have the option to continue to work in the classroom setting at X amount of days up to the end of the year, in many cases they just wouldn't stop teaching. They would just continue to teach. In the reality of today's society and economy, it's very hard to manage a living on solely a pension. People are having kids at different times of their life. They may be putting kids through college and university in their 50s or 60s, and they're just now having, late teenagers or 20-year-olds. Who knows? People, there are tons of chronic illness where they might be taking care of somebody else or themselves. There's so many situations. So although in the fall and at Christmas time I was very bitter and very negative about this, I feel like my whole viewpoint of this has completely flip-flopped, because it's what they intended. It's how they intended the system to work. They want, step one, and I'll just blow it up here one more time. Step one is teacher retires. Step two, the full-time job now opens. Step three, a new teacher gets that full-time job. Step four, retired teacher works part-time. It's the reality of it. It's been going on for a very, very long time. It's been going on for the better part of 30 years. And just recently, in 2008, with, let me just see if I can pull it up here. Where's my collective agreement? Oh, that's not it. Anyway, okay, so the collective agreement from 2008 had actually lessened the amount of days. So before it used to be 90 days. So that's, almost over 3 months of almost 4 months of the year where a retired teacher could be in the classroom. Now they're down to 50 days. So in a lot of ways, I guess, this has gone long now, I apologize, but I feel like although I've ranted about this for quite some time, I was misunderstood. I didn't really understand the big picture. I never thought about the realities of no one has to retire. You're not owed a job. Just because you went into a profession where there's not a lot of jobs doesn't mean that people need to retire to give you those jobs. Do I 100% agree with myself right now? No, because I want a job. And do I feel like, have I been put in a situation where maybe I've seen a retired teacher or I know of a retired teacher who isn't strong and maybe, it is time to let someone else take the reins? Yes. And I'm sure we've all been through that situation. So by no means do I feel like you need to blast retired teachers or kind of come off the handle of why are you still in the classroom? You made X amount of money for all these years. You should be comfortable. No. You can't say that to an individual. The reality is they have the right to continue teaching based on the policies with the Ministry of Education and the Ontario boards. And every board has this differently too. So before I leave you, I just wanted to state that my research also led me to looking into not just the Durham and Toronto district school boards, but Waterloo, York Regional, Kawartha District, and every single board seems to have a different idea of how this works. Some boards will allow teachers who are newer to the work or newer occasional teachers to actually get calls ahead of these retired teachers. So it's almost like a priority sequence, which I think is amazing. I hope that gets adopted in Durham. But then again, is that fair? Is that equal to those retired teachers who are still looking to get their 50 days? And in most cases, retired teachers hit their 50 days long before the end of the school year. They'll hit it in, April, May, or June. Prior to June, April, May, so it'll allow that last month or 2 or 3 for newer teachers to get their foot in the door and to get those calls. So I won't leave you with too much else. The reality is that this term, double dipping, it's rampant. We hear about it all the time. I've seen it at General Motors. I've worked at General Motors for years. There's lots of executives who have left on pensions, on buyouts, and then they've come back into the system as like a contract worker, a supervisor. Long story short, it's very sticky. I know this has gone long, but I feel like I needed to get all this out and this information. Not only did I somewhat rant, but I was able to deconstruct the rant and kind of flip it into a question. And I feel like I would love to talk to you more about it, but the social media approach that I took with taking to the Facebook group and then having some of my peers message me and be like, whoa, like you opened a can of worms, you really stirred the pot. I think it was an amazing experience. I really appreciate it. I think for the next one, I'm going to be doing activity number 5, looking at the Ontario schools, and I hope this was rant worthy. If there's any other questions, I would love to take them, and I will be sure to get my references as well as my notes, and then my vision and kind of my philosophy behind this rant into a document and submit it also. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And what's with the retired teachers working in Ontario?